If they play dirty, do not play louder. Play smarter, because the world does not always reward the kindest person in the room. It rewards the person who understands what room they are standing in. Most people walk through life believing good intentions will protect them. They think honesty earns fairness. They think patience earns respect. They think if they stay decent, others will eventually do the same. But that is not how power works. And Machiavelli understood that long before modern offices, group chats, fake friendships, and social games. He understood something colder, something more dangerous. People do not always attack because they are stronger. They attack because they see an opening. They sense predictability. They notice hesitation. They study your reactions. And once they understand your emotional pattern, they stop confronting you directly. They start arranging the environment around you. They smile while moving against you. They stay calm while making you look reactive. They let you explain, defend, and overextend yourself. And while you are trying to stay fair, they are staying effective. This video is not about becoming cruel. It is not about manipulation for the sake of ego. It is about becoming aware enough that other people can no longer use your morality as a weakness, because refusing to understand the game does not remove you from it. It only makes you easier to play. Today we are breaking down 10 Machiavellian psychological principles that help you outsmart dirty players without becoming one of them. These are not quotes. These are not empty be confident lessons. These are mental tools. The kind that make you calmer, less readable, less reactive, and much harder to move. By the end of this video, you will not feel louder. You will feel sharper. And once that happens, people start treating you differently. Before we begin, drop this affirmation in the comments. I see the game clearly. 1. Dirty players do not chase weakness. They chase predictability. Most people misunderstand what makes someone vulnerable. They assume it is insecurity, timidity, low confidence, a lack of strength. But Machiavelli understood that the easiest people to control are often not the weakest. They are the most predictable, the person who always explains, the person who always gives another chance, the person who always tries to restore peace, the person who always chooses harmony over position. That person may be morally good, but in a competitive environment, moral consistency without strategic awareness becomes exposure. Because once someone knows how you will respond, they stop guessing. And the moment they stop guessing, they start calculating. Dirty players love people who advertise their limits. People who reveal too quickly what they will tolerate, how long they will stay patient, how much disrespect they will excuse, how uncomfortable they are with silence, how badly they need to be seen as fair. These are not character flaws, but they are signals, and signals create openings. This is why manipulative people rarely begin with major attacks. Dirty players love people who advertise their limits, people who reveal too quickly what they will tolerate, how long they will stay patient, how much disrespect they will excuse, how uncomfortable they are with silence, how badly they need to be seen as fair. These are not character flaws, but they are signals, and signals create openings. This is why manipulative people rarely begin with major attacks. They begin with small tests, a delay, a subtle lie, a shift in tone, a quiet disrespect, a selective omission. Then they watch. If you rush to smooth it over, they learn something. If you explain instead of observe, they learn something. If you feel guilty for noticing the game, they learn even more. And with each reaction, you teach them how to move around you. Machiavelli understood that power often begins with studying patterns, not overpowering people, reading them, mapping them, learning what emotional button produces what behavioral result. This is why good people get exploited so often. Not because goodness is weakness, but because goodness that never changes shape becomes easy to predict. And predictable people are easy to manage. The answer is not becoming dishonest. It is becoming harder to read. Stop revealing your thresholds too quickly. Stop making your reactions available on demand. Stop letting people know exactly how much pressure it takes to move you. Because the moment others cannot fully predict you, they lose one of their biggest advantages. And once that advantage disappears, they begin becoming careful. Not moral, careful. That is enough. Remember this. Dirty players do not attack strength first. They attack certainty, and certainty begins breaking the moment you become too easy to model. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am not easy to read. 2. Never correct every wrong assumption about you. One of the biggest mistakes smart people make is believing they need to fix every misunderstanding, every false assumption, every misread signal, every underestimation. But Machiavelli knew something most people learn too late. Sometimes the best thing someone can believe about you is the wrong thing. If someone underestimates your awareness, let them. If they think you missed the shift, let them. If they think you are less strategic than you are, let them stay comfortable. Because the moment you rush to prove your intelligence, your clarity, your competence, or your awareness, you close the information channel. People become guarded the second they realize you are tracking everything. They tighten up, they talk less, they explain less. They stop exposing the parts of themselves you were about to see. That is why selective silence is powerful. Not because it is mysterious, because it keeps people relaxed long enough to reveal more than they intended. Machiavelli understood that obvious power creates defense. Hidden power creates carelessness, and carelessness reveals intention. Most people are driven by ego. They want to be recognized correctly. They want others to know they are not naive, not weak, not confused. But that ego creates unnecessary exposure, not because it is mysterious, because it keeps people relaxed long enough to reveal more than they intended. Machiavelli understood that obvious power creates defense. Hidden power creates carelessness, and carelessness reveals intention. Most people are driven by ego. They want to be recognized correctly. They want others to know they are not naive, not weak, not confused. But that ego creates unnecessary exposure, because the need to be perceived accurately makes you reveal too much too early. You do not need to interrupt every assumption. You do not need to announce every observation. You do not need to prove to someone that you see what they are doing. Often the stronger move is to let the assumption stand and watch what they do next, because what people do when they believe you are unaware tells you far more than what they say when they know you are watching. This is the art of strategic undercorrection. You do not lie. You do not perform weakness. You simply stop wasting energy correcting perceptions that benefit your position. Let them think they are ahead. Let them feel slightly too comfortable. Let them escalate on false confidence, because false confidence makes people sloppy, and sloppy people reveal structure. Machiavelli respected structure more than emotion. He knew that real leverage comes from seeing the board clearly, while others think they are still hiding their pieces. So stop correcting every narrative. You do not perform weakness. You simply stop wasting energy correcting perceptions that benefit your position. Let them think they are ahead. Let them feel slightly too comfortable. 3. The fastest way to lose power is to explain too much. The second you start over-explaining yourself, something shifts. The conversation stops being about your decision and starts becoming about whether your reasoning is acceptable. That is the trap. Machiavelli understood that explanations often feel honest but function like surrender. Because once you explain too much, you invite evaluation. You invite judgment. You hand the other person material, and material can be twisted. The more detail you provide, the more angles they get. The more emotional context you reveal, the easier you become to manipulate. This is especially true with dirty players, because they are not listening to understand you. They are listening to extract from you, to find the weak spot in your logic, the insecurity in your tone, the emotional priority hidden inside your language. They want to know what you fear being misunderstood about, because that is where pressure works best. Most people explain because they want fairness. They want clarity. They want to be seen correctly. But dirty players do not reward explanation. They use it. They dissect your wording. They challenge your framing. They redirect the conversation into your motives instead of their behavior. And now you are stuck defending a narrative instead of holding a position. That is why short language is so powerful. Simple language, direct language, language that closes instead of opens. I made my decision. That doesn't work for me. I'm not discussing that. We see it differently. Clean, low emotion, minimal surface area. Machiavelli understood that authority does not constantly narrate itself. It moves, it decides, it withholds unnecessary commentary. Not because truth is weak, because excessive truth in the wrong environment becomes access. And access is what manipulators need. There is also something else. The more you explain, the more emotionally invested you become in being understood. That investment makes you reactive. Once you care too much about controlling interpretation, you lose energy. And energy loss changes posture, tone, pacing, presence. Now they can feel your need. And need is always readable. So stop trying to make everyone understand your intentions. Not everyone deserves insight into how you think. Not everyone needs the full map. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is protection. And sometimes the strongest answer is the one that gives them nothing to work with. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I do not over-explain my position. 4. Manipulators rarely attack directly, they arrange conditions. Most dirty players are not blunt. They do not usually walk up and declare war. They arrange the environment. That is how they win. Machiavelli understood that direct aggression creates resistance, but positioning creates outcome without looking like force. So instead of openly attacking you, manipulators shape the conditions around you. They bring things up when you are tired. They create pressure in front of other people. They imply instead of accuse. They shift timing. They manage contrast. They stay calm while making you appear emotional. And now the surface story is working for them. This is why so many people lose power without understanding why. They react to the visible tension, but miss the invisible structure. And structure is where the real move happened. For example, someone does not insult you directly. They misunderstand you in public, or ask an innocent question that puts you on the defensive, or delay something important until the last minute, or act calm while subtly cornering you into urgency. Now, if you react emotionally, you look unstable. If you defend yourself too hard, you look guilty. If you stay silent too long, they keep framing. That is not random. That is arrangement. Machiavelli understood that controlling context is often more powerful than controlling content. Because when the setting favors one side, even a strong reply can look weak. That is why awareness matters so much. Before reacting, ask yourself, what is the environment doing here? Who is present? What timing is being used? What role am I being pushed into? What reaction are they expecting? That question alone changes everything. Because once you see the arrangement, you stop mistaking manipulation for coincidence. And once you stop mistaking it, you stop reacting automatically. That is the beginning of real mental power. You do not need to destroy the whole setup immediately. Often you simply need to refuse the assigned role. If they are trying to make you look reactive, slow down. If they are trying to rush you, pause. If they are trying to trap you publicly, answer minimally. If they are trying to get you emotional, remain structurally calm. Positioning only works when you walk into the frame they built. Do not do that. Make them work harder. Make them become more obvious. Because the more obvious manipulation becomes, the weaker it gets. Remember this. Direct attacks create noise. Positioning creates results. So if you want to outsmart dirty players, stop watching only behavior. Start watching setup. That is where the game begins. 5. Fairness without leverage is a trap. One of the most dangerous illusions good people live inside is the illusion of fairness. They believe if they behave reasonably, things will return to balance. They believe if they stay patient, the other side will eventually correct itself. They believe if they do the right thing, the outcome will somehow become right too. But Machiavelli understood that fairness only works when both sides are bound by it, and dirty players are not. That is the whole problem. If one person is acting within rules and the other is exploiting those rules, then fairness stops being a virtue and starts becoming a cage. Because while you are measuring what is appropriate, they are measuring what is effective. That difference changes everything. Dirty players know many decent people are afraid of seeming too harsh, too firm, too cold, too unfair. So they push slowly. They rely on your hesitation. They count on your discomfort with consequence. They know that as long as you are more committed to looking fair than protecting position, they have room. Machiavelli did not reject morality. He rejected helpless morality. Morality without leverage. Boundaries without consequence. Justice without enforcement. Because symbols do not scare manipulative people. Cost does. If a behavior carries no cost, it repeats. If crossing your line has no consequence, your line is decorative. And dirty players know the difference. This is why fairness is often used against good people. The second you finally push back, they accuse you of overreacting. Being unfair, being too much. Why? Because they want to pull you back into self-doubt, back into restraint, back into the moral trap that protects them. Do not fall for that. You do not need to become excessive, but you do need to become accurate. Accurate in reading the environment, accurate in measuring intent, accurate in responding to imbalance. Fairness asks, what would be ideal? Accuracy asks, what is this situation actually rewarding? That is the better question, because power responds to reality, not ideals. And once you start responding accurately instead of automatically, people feel the difference. You become less available for slow exploitation, less likely to tolerate disguised disrespect, less likely to confuse passivity with virtue. That is not cruelty. That is self-respect with structure. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I do not confuse fairness with weakness. 6. The person who controls the pace controls the pressure. Dirty players love speed. Fast pressure, fast emotional hooks, fast decisions, fast reactions. Because speed reduces judgment. The faster a moment moves, the less time you have to notice what is really happening. Machiavelli understood that slowness is not always hesitation. Sometimes it is dominance. The person who controls pace controls tension, and the person who controls tension controls the exchange. This is why delayed response is so powerful. When others expect immediate reaction and receive stillness instead, they begin losing orientation. They start filling the silence with assumptions, questions, follow-ups, explanations. The pressure they aimed at you starts turning inward. That shift is everything. Most people think responding immediately proves confidence. It often proves the opposite. It proves you were moved, that you were hooked, that you could not tolerate the uncertainty of silence. Dirty players watch for that. They study response speed because it reveals emotional investment. Quick replies often expose fear, urgency, guilt, pride, or insecurity. Delay hides all of that. It keeps your internal state unreadable. And unreadable people are difficult to manipulate. This does not mean disappearing for drama. It means choosing timing instead of surrendering it. It means not answering because someone else wants an answer now. It means not defending because the moment feels tense. It means not clarifying just because someone created discomfort. Machiavelli knew that those who rush often leak information. Those who wait gather it. That is why patience is not passive. It is observational. It lets you see tone change. Let others escalate. Let people expose their need for control. Let their impatience become visible. And impatient people always reveal something. The strongest part of delayed response is that it changes who feels pressure. At first they wanted you rushed. Then they become the ones wondering, waiting, reassessing. Now the gravity has moved. And they feel it. Remember, if they control your tempo, they control your behavior. So slow the moment down, not for drama, for clarity, because clarity always gets stronger when speed disappears. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I control the pace. 7. If they can confuse your identity, they can control your decisions. One of the smartest manipulation tactics is not attacking your actions. It is attacking your self-concept, making you question who you are, whether you are being fair, whether you are overreacting, whether this version of you is really you. Machiavelli understood that once identity becomes unstable, behavior becomes easier to guide, because a person who no longer trusts their own internal compass starts looking outward for permission, for reassurance, for moral confirmation. And the moment that happens, leverage enters. Dirty players do this subtly. They do not usually say, I want to control you. They say things like, you used to be different. This doesn't sound like you. You're acting weird lately. I'm just worried you're changing. Notice the strategy. It is not about the issue. It is about destabilizing your self-trust, making your focus turn inward, making you question alignment instead of observing behavior. Now your energy is split. Part of you is dealing with the problem. The other part is auditing your identity. That split weakens decision-making, and weakened decision-making makes you easier to manage. Machiavelli knew that stable identity creates stable position. When you know who you are privately, external commentary loses weight. But when identity depends too heavily on how others frame you, manipulation becomes easy, because dirty players do not need to overpower you. They only need to create enough doubt that you hesitate, and hesitation is expensive, especially when the other side keeps moving. This is why internal anchoring matters. You need values that are self-defined, not socially rented. You need standards that exist even when other people dislike them. You need clarity that does not disappear just because someone calls it cold, selfish, harsh, or unfair. Because once you depend on outside comfort to know who you are, you become governable. And governable people are easy to position. This does not mean rigidity. It means internal steadiness. The ability to change intentionally, not through psychological pressure. That difference matters. Because growth chosen by you is strength. Change forced by confusion is manipulation. So stop handing your identity to the room. Stop letting emotionally strategic people define what your boundaries say about you. You know your intent. You know your line. Hold it. Because once identity stops wobbling, manipulation starts becoming visible. And visible manipulation loses power fast. 8. Controlled unpredictability creates caution. Machiavelli understood something most people hate admitting. Predictability makes others comfortable, and comfort makes you easier to manage. Dirty players love fixed patterns. They love knowing how long you take to reply, how you respond to conflict, how much access they can expect, how often you forgive, how quickly you return. Once that rhythm is known, they stop adapting to you. You start adapting to them. That is the problem. Controlled unpredictability breaks that rhythm. Not chaos, not instability, not emotional inconsistency. Controlled unpredictability means others cannot fully assume how much access, reaction, or availability they will get from you. Sometimes you engage, sometimes you do not. Sometimes you respond fast, sometimes you wait. Sometimes you are warm, sometimes you are brief, not randomly, strategically. This matters because entitlement feeds on reliability. The moment someone starts assuming your time, attention, or emotional openness is automatic. They begin lowering their self-regulation. They push further, respect less, test more. Controlled unpredictability interrupts that. It reminds people that access is not guaranteed. And once access stops feeling guaranteed, behavior changes. 9. Walking away creates more fear than arguing ever will. Dirty players depend on involvement. That is what keeps them alive. Your reaction, your defense, your explanation, your need to stay in the exchange. Machiavelli understood that disengagement is one of the most powerful forms of control. Because the second you leave calmly, the entire system they built loses friction. They cannot provoke what is not present. They cannot pressure what no longer participates. They cannot manage a narrative when the other side refuses the stage. Most people stay too long in conversations, too long in tension, too long in circles, because they want closure, resolution, understanding, but dirty players are not always trying to solve. Sometimes they are trying to keep you emotionally occupied. That is why walking away is so disruptive. It removes the resource they were depending on, your engagement. Now they are left with no fresh reaction to study, no emotional spill to measure, no new explanation to dissect, only absence. And absence creates doubt. Did they miscalculate? Push too far? Lose control? That uncertainty is psychologically expensive. Machiavelli knew that power often comes from choosing conclusion, not forcing continuation. The one who can disengage without panic looks stronger than the one who needs the argument to keep going. That matters. 10. The final Machiavellian truth. Become untouchable, not loud. Most people think power looks obvious, dominant, visible, aggressive. But Machiavelli understood something deeper. Real power is often invisible. It is position. It is internal control. It is becoming so difficult to manipulate that dirty players stop investing effort in you altogether. That is the real goal. Not revenge, not theatrical dominance, not trying to win every social moment. Untouchability. What does that mean? It means your emotions are no longer cheap to access. Your reactions are no longer automatic. Your silence no longer scares you. Your identity no longer depends on outside approval. Your position no longer collapses just because someone else wants tension. That is what makes someone dangerous, psychologically. Not loudness, not cruelty, cost. Machiavelli understood that people behave according to what the environment rewards. If manipulating you still produces emotional return, they keep trying. If provoking you still works, they continue. If confusing you still gives them access, they repeat the tactic. But once all of that becomes expensive, they adjust. Not because they became moral, because you stopped being profitable. That is the shift. You do not need to dominate other people. You need to become a bad investment for their manipulation. Someone whose reactions are too measured, whose access is too selective, whose behavior is too hard to model, whose boundaries do not announce themselves but still exist, whose emotional world cannot be cheaply entered. That person becomes exhausting to play against. And manipulators hate exhaustion. They prefer easy targets, easy emotion, easy guilt, easy access. Do not be easy. That is the final lesson. Not become hard in a dramatic way. Become costly in a quiet way. Because quiet power always lasts longer than loud power. Loud power creates scenes. Quiet power changes treatment, and treatment is what matters. If people begin moving more carefully around you, hesitating before crossing lines, thinking twice before trying the old tactic, then you are already winning the real game. Not because you shouted louder, because you became mentally expensive. That is Machiavellian clarity. Not evil, not cruelty. Position. And position changes everything. If they play dirty, do not copy their chaos. Do not let them drag you into their frame. Do not hand them your emotions just because they know how to reach for them. Outsmarting them mentally is not about becoming colder than them. It is about becoming clearer than them. Clear about what you tolerate. Clear about what you reveal. Clear about how access works. Clear about when silence is stronger than speech. Everything in this video points to one truth: power does not shout. Power does not rush. Power does not explain itself into exhaustion. Power watches, chooses, withholds, positions. The moment you stop reacting on command, people feel the shift. The moment you stop over-explaining, they lose material. The moment you stop being easy to read, they stop feeling safe around your predictability. That is when the game changes. You do not need to win every exchange. You need to stop being manipulated inside them. That is the real elevation. If this video sharpened your mind, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment the principle that hit you hardest. And remember, you do not beat dirty players by becoming dirtier. You beat them by becoming untouchable.